Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be reading through this book about Sudan. We will look at all the pictures and we will read all the little boxes. So let's just dive right into Sudan. Can't turn the page. There we go. There's Khartoum. You can see where the White Nile meets the Blue Nile River just to form the good old Nile River. And there's a sweet little family there with their littles. Here is the desert, what a lot of Sudan looks like, particularly in the north and kind of to the west. There's a felucca, an old type of boat used on the Nile. And we've got a first box here. Damming the Nile. The English first built a dam at Aswan in 1899. Its height was raised in 1912 and in 1933. A second, higher dam was built in the 1960s, which affected the lives of some 50,000 Sudanese. As the waters rose, 27 villages and the town of Wadi Halfa were submerged. The people were compensated and relocated to Qasem El Girba, east of Khartoum. Lake Nasser, also known as Lake Nubia in Sudan, created by the dam, is one of the world's largest reservoirs. Under an international agreement, the country of Sudan is allowed to draw 640 billion cubic feet of water from Lake Nasser, making major development projects possible. South of Khartoum are the Sennar Dam, built after World War I, and a dam on the White Nile at Jabal Aliwa, built in 1937. The Rosaires Irrigation Project, located on the Blue Nile and served by the Rosaires Dam, has brought more than 865,511 acres of land under cultivation. There's the dam right there. Here are some of the highest mountains in Sudan. They're located in the west in the Darfur region. We've got an Ard wolf. Isn't that adorable? A little painted dog, it looks like. And there's a box here about the Haboob. Haboob is an Arabic word that means blasting or drifting. It is used to refer to a type of strong dust storm. Haboobs are a common occurrence in areas with arid climates, such as the Sahara Desert in Sudan. This type of dust storm was named in Sudan, but they also happen in parts of the Arabian Peninsula, Australia, and even Texas and Arizona in the United States. When a thunderstorm forms, winds rush from all directions into the storm. When the storm collapses, rain begins to fall. At the same time, the winds change direction and gust out of the storm. This sudden draft of air hits the ground, stirring up all the loose dust and dirt into a wall that is pushed along in front of the storm. Often, in the heat of the desert, the rain evaporates before it even reaches the ground, so all that is left is the Haboob, a giant wall of dust. Sometimes a Haboob can be up to 10,000 feet high and up to 62 miles wide. Smaller Haboobs may only last for as little as 10 minutes and travel just a few miles. However, stronger ones can last for several hours, traveling 100 miles or more. Got some palm trees here growing along the Nile, it says. And this is Port Sudan on the Red Sea. And another picture of Khartoum. I know there's a lot happening in Khartoum right now. Hopefully all is safe and well at the moment. And hopefully unrest will end peacefully. There's a big old map here. It's showing the different trade routes around the Atlantic into the Indian and Pacific, emphasizing the Suez Canal and the Red Sea there. Here are some of the pyramids you can find in Sudan. It's like one of those like geography facts that every geography nerd knows, that Sudan has the most pyramids in the world, and they are these. They have so many because they are tiny. Let's read about Nubia, the culture that built most of these pyramids. Nubia was one of the earliest recorded African civilizations. Located in what is now northern Sudan and southern Egypt, the kingdom served as an important trading pathway from the southern parts of Africa to the Mediterranean and beyond. Nubia was first settled in approximately 5000 BCE. People were drawn by the fertile lands along the Nile. Soon they had built a region rich in agricultural crops, cattle, and precious minerals, including gold. As the civilization grew, Nubian kings erected impressive cities, temples, and monuments. Archaeological excavations have also revealed a writing system, although it is not as well understood as other ancient languages. Nevertheless, records from Egypt and Greece mention complex relationships with the Nubian Empire. Before we read that box, let's look at one of these cool columns. It looks like horses carved on it. Many ancient Sudanese followed the religion of Egypt. It's really neat. Let's read about Saluka, Shaduf, and Sakia. The human settlement of the Middle Nile region depended on the river. In one season, the Nile could destroy crops and houses by flooding. The next, it could be so low that the fields could not be irrigated and crops died. In one year, it might bring rich soil up from the south to grow the next season's crops, while in another year it might wash all the arable soil away. There was also the problem of getting water to the arable land. 3 types of land existed, each defined by the type of irrigation system it required. Saluka land was situated on the floodplain of the river. Each year, soil and water were carried up by the river, and all the farmer had to do was plant his crops, weed them, and watch them grow. The drawback of this land was that it could be cultivated only during one season. Shaduf land was the next to develop. It was the land that lay 10 feet or less above the river, so that water could be lifted up to it using a man-powered pivot. Sakia land was around 25 feet above the level of the river and came into cultivation only after the invention of the ox-drawn water wheel. A 4th type of land rare in the Sudan was basin land, which lay adjacent to the river but at a lower level. River water could be channeled into it by means of a canal or when the river overflowed. See an old picture here of the British fighting in Sudan. See there. And we have the Mahdi, a very important figure in Sudanese history. Basically, the reason this happened is because of the Mahdi. The modern flag of Sudan, and some soldiers fighting in the ongoing civil war conflicts that have been going on, my goodness, since the early 2000s. President Omar al-Bashir, who is no longer president. He still was when this book came out. He has been, I think, forcibly stepped down and is now arrested for war crimes. So there's that. And it's voting day, showing off their ballot. Some rebels in the Darfur region, very sad situation. And a refugee camp probably in Chad. That's where a lot of people in the Darfur region fled to. Out and about in Khartoum, the vice president when this book came out. And there's Bashir meeting with the Egyptian president. And there's a box here about Sharia law, which is kind of an issue right now in Sudan. So let's see what this is about. Sharia law is imposed throughout the country, although a few protections for non-Muslims were established in the 2005 peace accords. Sharia law seems to be inconsistent, varying according to the geography of the country. Many penalties determined by Sharia law apply to all citizens, regardless of their own religion. Public lashing is common for those found guilty of drinking alcohol or uttering blasphemy, for which the maximum sentence is 100 lashes. For a theft of anything valued at more than $40, the right hand is amputated. For aggravated theft or more serious crimes, the right hand and the left foot are amputated. Adultery and repeated homosexuality are punishable by execution, but in both cases, the enormous burden of proof has prevented these punishments from being carried out. Those convicted of shameful acts are lashed. This is quite common in cases of suspected adultery. Those found engaging in premarital sex are also lashed, with the guilty receiving the maximum 100 lashes. Those injured by crime can demand retribution. For example, a woman whose arm was broken can demand that the arm of the woman who caused the injury be broken also. One notable case was that of a pregnant woman sentenced to death in 2014 for refusing to renounce her Christian faith. She was eventually freed after the case received international attention. Yeah, it's an issue how the areas pick and choose what to do. It is an issue. Some more soldiers there waving the flag of Sudan. And another picture from a refugee camp. There's someone here making sure. It looks like he's selling peanuts here at the camp, making sure all is well. And let's see, political parties. Yeah, we're going to skip this one. It's probably outdated because it talks about al-Bashir and he's no longer in power. Picking some cotton here. There's a box here about gum Arabic. Might have heard of this. It's in a lot of things. Let's read about it. One of Sudan's most important crops is gum Arabic. Also known as acacia gum, it is a resin that comes from some varieties of the acacia tree, particularly those that grow in western Sudan. The resin seeps from the trees and hardens into walnut-sized balls. Harvesting begins in the middle of the rainy season and continues through the dry season. Gum Arabic is used mainly in cooking as a thickening agent and stabilizer. It is also used in the making of some adhesives, paints, cosmetics, and printing products, as well as in some candies and soft drinks. Gum Arabic can also be found in shoe polish, the glue on postage stamps, ceramic glazes, and even cigarette papers. Cheaper alternatives are becoming more widely available, however. However, gum Arabic remains a useful ingredient. Sudan is the world's largest exporter of gum Arabic, providing between 75 and 80% of the global output. As many as 5 million people are thought to depend on the harvesting of gum Arabic for their livelihoods. Interesting. There's sorghum. It's a grain crop. We've got people here building a pipeline. And looks like they're herding their cows here in this picture. There's a train going through the town. And a picture of an airport. Looks like it's in the middle of nowhere. And we have a miner here working very hard mining these rocks in this cave. There's the beautiful Nile River, the fertile banks there. A big box here about protected lands in Sudan. The independence of South Sudan in 2011 saw the loss of most of Sudan's national parks and game reserves. Parks such as Bandingilo and Boma were now part of Sudan's new neighbor, leaving few protected lands within the nation. Those parks that did remain had been largely neglected during years of war. Few resources were dedicated to providing any environmental management, and so illegal forestry for the charcoal trade and unregulated hunting caused widespread damage. However, post-war Sudan has been working with international agencies in an attempt to rehabilitate some of its parks. Sudan's largest national park is Dindir. Established in 1935, the park covers 2,750 square miles in southeastern Sudan. Dindir is home to more than 150 species of birds and 27 large mammals, including leopards and cheetahs. Lions were discovered in the park in 2016. Much of the park is under threat from nomadic cattle herders, and populations of deer and antelope have suffered with the encroachment of these outsiders. Elsewhere in Sudan, the Suakin archipelago has been proposed as a national park, although its status has not yet been verified. The group of islands is located in the Red Sea. Popular with divers, they are home to coral reefs, 4 species of turtle, and breeding colonies of 5 types of bird. If protected, this would be Sudan's second protected marine area. The first, Sanganeb Atoll Marine Park, is a coral island where more than 300 species of fish can be found. See, there's Khartoum University, and they found a well here in the desert, and they're getting some water. This guy is selling some charcoal here. And the hot, dry ground affected by drought, all caked and cracked. We've got, it looks like a family trip out here on the family donkey and camel with the littles up there on the hump. Yeah, it says they're a nomadic family moving to a new location. Yeah, it's a road trip day for the family. There's some sweets here. These are Rashaida children. A very cute smile. And this is, this boy is Nubia. He's got some mud painted on his face. Box here about refugees. Let's see what it says. The second civil war in Sudan killed nearly 2 million people and displaced 4 million more. Some of those displaced have since left for Chad and Egypt, while others have gone to Asia and Europe. The ongoing conflict in Darfur has displaced even more Sudanese. In Kalma, Darfur's biggest refugee camp, more than 150,000 people are dependent on food aid. Refugee camps in central and southern Sudan are filled with Sudanese people displaced by the war, as well as with refugees from Chad, Uganda, and other African countries. And he's out on his donkey, getting pulled there on his little cart. Got another box here about body decoration. Scarring is a very ancient tradition in Sudan. Frescoes in the historical city of Meroe depict scarring patterns on the faces of people. Scarification is a major ethnic and aesthetic component, not only among the southern people in Sudan, but also across other parts of Africa. Sometimes scarification is performed on girls to mark the stages of life, such as puberty or marriage. Men also have facial scarring, which is carried out as part of their initiation into manhood. A common scarring pattern among the Shilluk is a row of raised bumps across the forehead made by rubbing ash into the wounds. The Shilluk king has this type of scarring. The Nuer have 6 parallel lines on their foreheads, while the Ja'alain have lines marked on their cheeks. The scarring is to them considered beautiful and identifies ethnicities. I wish there was a picture because I do think it looks really, really neat. I mean, in my culture, we have tattoos as a normal thing, so it's just pretty much the same concept, but really neat looking, I think. Thorns and razor blades are used to remove skin, creating the sholuk, or facial cuts. Many medical organizations are concerned about the dangers of disease, especially HIV and hepatitis, which might be transmitted through the use of unclean tools and unsafe healing methods. The practice is not as common as it once was, although in many rural areas, social and family pressures remain strong. Other forms of body decoration include lip tattooing, practiced by some women in the north, and painting hands and feet with intricate henna patterns. I'm enjoying the sound this book is making when I press on it. Of course, now it's not doing it. If you hear the little squeaky noises in the background, that's coming from the book. Now it's not doing it at all. Okay. Anyway, there's some more sweet smiles here. You can see the big mountains in the background. Another busy day in Khartoum, the capital city. Yet another busy day here. You can see, looks like some minarets right there. And a little nomadic settlement here. This sound. It's a nice sound. And some thatched straw huts that the Nubia people live in, it says. Make sure you can see. I'm sorry the glare of the light's so bad today. Let's see, taking a family photo here. This person is posing for the photograph. And person is carrying all their things on their head. And look at this donkey carrying a big old load there. We're going to skip this box about female circumcision. Important issue, but not a very relaxing one. Getting vaccines. Muslim wedding. This isn't really pertaining to Sudan. So, yeah, we're going to skip that. I just want to read boxes about Sudan. Like, look at all these kids studying hard in school. And there's a very sweet baby, but it looks very, very small because they're struggling with famine. A beautiful minaret here. That's pretty. Very precise brick there. Beautiful colors. Looks like mint chocolate chip colors. Again, 5 pillars of faith. Important, but not really, that pertains to every Muslim country. They've got a meal here before Ramadan, I guess before the sun rises, or maybe just after the sun sets. And there's a traditional healer here, burning some herbs to cure something or other. Some Arabic here, looks like the Quran, probably, I would assume. Greetings in body language. See, this is what I'm talking about. Although, I'd rather read this one. Written African languages. A written language has existed in ancient Sudan since the 3rd millennium BCE. Egyptian rulers left inscriptions on their tombs in Sudan written in Egyptian hieroglyphics. The African civilization that created the city of Meroe had its own written script, which was stylistically but not etymologically related to ancient Egyptian. The Meroitic script was first recorded in writing in the 2nd century BCE. The script has 2 forms, hieroglyphic and cursive. The Meroitic hieroglyphic signs were borrowed from the Egyptians, while the cursive script is derived mainly from the Egyptian Demotic script. Many of the African languages have no written form of any kind before missionaries lived with the tribes who spoke them. Missionaries often became linguists, not because of an interest in language for its own sake, but because they wanted to bring the Bible to the African people. And the most efficient way to do that was to translate it into the local languages. So they learned the African languages, some learning tens of languages. They then created written forms by transcribing them into the Roman alphabet. Even today, missionary societies keep vast databases of African languages, detailing where they are spoken, how many people speak them, and if they can be understood by other ethnic groups. Doing some reading right there. And selling some newspapers. You can see the Arabic script there as well. A beautiful painting there. I love that blue color. Libraries and museums. Sudan has about 10 major libraries. 2 of the larger libraries are at the University of Khartoum and the Afad University for Women, with an estimated 800,000 books. Other libraries include the Institute of Education, with about 28,000 volumes, and the Khartoum Polytechnic, with a collection of 30,000 books. Minor libraries are maintained by secondary schools, places of worship, government agencies, and foreign community centers. There are 6 museums, most of them in Khartoum. The National Museum, in the center of the city, has 2 floors depicting the ancient history of Sudan, with displays of the remains of the ancient Kush civilization and rescued frescoes from the early churches. In the garden of the museum are reconstructed temples of Buhen and Semna, salvaged during the construction of the Aswan Dam. The Temple of Buhen dates back to 1490 BCE and was built by the Egyptian queen Hatshepsut. Another ethnographic museum in Khartoum, which has since closed, was dedicated to artifacts of village life, many of which are still in use in parts of the country. These are some statues from Kerma of Nubian kings. This gorgeous fresco here you can see of an angel. And this is in a cathedral, so a Catholic church, also very beautifully painted. Potter there, making, looks like a big mug of some kind. Sudanese author Tayeb Saleh. And a box here about Sudanese musicians. Abdel Gadir Salim, Abdel Aziz El Mubarak, and Mohammed Gubara are popular Sudanese musicians whose music has been brought to the West through albums and performances. Salim fronts a small ensemble of oud, tabla, which is a kind of drum, and accordion, highlighting the rhythms and melodies as well as the voice of the artist. He also plays with a larger band. Mubarak sings with oud, drum, and accordion. His influences are broader than Salim's, with traces of many other cultures slipping into his more urban interpretation. Gubara plays with a tambour. His sharper vocal style and sparse accompaniment create stunning music with an almost chilling intensity and energy. Other contemporary Sudanese musicians include Wafir, who is considered a virtuoso on the accordion, the violin, and the oud, and Hasuna Bangladesh, who plays traditional Sudanese music with a contemporary feel. And they are breaking it down in this picture. They are doing some dancing to some hip-hop music. It says, look at all these camels. That is a lot of camels. Must be a very rich man if they're all his. A shopping mall here in Khartoum. Very, very fancy, isn't it? And it's time to buy some fruit at the market for these people. And there's some wrestling here in the Nubia style. Let's read about telling stories. Do you know who this is? I know for sure this has to be Anansi. One traditional activity that survives in Sudan is storytelling. Stories are passed on from older generations to the young. The Sudanese of the south share many of the folk stories of other areas of Africa, such as the stories of Anansi the spider, a story that also came to America with the Africans taken into slavery in the 18th and 19th centuries. Other stories concern ghosts or history. One modern story tells of a tree outside an old prison in Kassala that was used to hang criminals. Local people believed that the suffering spirits of those executed lived in the tree. The tree died and was cut down to be used for firewood, but no one in the village would touch it. When a passing traveler took some of the wood and lit a fire, he heard the voices of the dead people calling out to him from the flames. That's spooky. Looks like they're all ready to pray. And my goodness, it says sweets. I thought they were like rocks or bricks of some kind, but it's candy. And look at this feast. My goodness, this is on Eid al-Fitr, the end of Ramadan. And they are doing a dance here. It says it's to expel demons. And here are some Dinka people. You can tell because the Dinka are big cattle farmers and their cattle have these massive horns on them. So they're having a festival where they're holding up some of the big old horns from their cattle. Now, doesn't this look so tasty? My goodness, this is, pardon me, this is called fool. That looks yummy. They've got some fruit to sell you. Looks very friendly there. And having a nice meal together in the style that they eat in this part of the world where all the food goes on one plate and you just take from the plate onto your little plate. A coffee pot here. It's called a chibena, it says. Let's read about some popular dishes in Sudan. Food in Sudan varies from one ethnic group to another. Differences in lifestyles and climates account for the types of food favored by a particular region. Northern Sudan is known for its simple wheat-based cuisine. The staple dish, gurasa, is made of wheat flour and baked into a circular shape. In eastern Sudan, the Ethiopian-influenced banana paste dish called mukbasa is very popular. In the nomadic West, milk and dairy products are commonplace and are used in most of the cooking. The western region is also known for its cereal called dukun, which is used as a base for preparing thick porridges and stews. Central Sudan has a popular fish dish cooked with onions, spices, and tomato sauce called fasik. That sounds like the best one so far. Because vegetables and fish are more abundant in the south, the region is well known for its fish stew called kajaik, which is usually eaten with asida, a porridge made of sorghum. And they're making some food there over the fire. And here's a big old baobab tree. Looks like they're tapping it for some water, it says, because they're full of water. You can imagine those big old trees. Let's see what dishes we have. Spiced potatoes with beef. I would tear this up. This looks amazing. And Sudanese lemon cake. Yum, yum. There's a map here of Sudan. And this shows you where Sudan is located in the world. And that is the end of our book for tonight. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, please consider subscribing because I do videos like this all the time. There'll be one, let me see my calendar. Next week, I'll be doing another African country. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. I hope that you have a very good